Well, hello everybody. I'm Ed Parcaut, and this is Helping the Brave. Amy Tiemeyer is traveling today, so I'm just by myself, but we do have a great guest on today. So let me bring in our guest. And Derek, how you doing?
Doing great, doing great. How you
I should
doing,
have
Ed?
told you. I don't know if you know this, but this is live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube right now.
All right, perfect.
I didn't know if we told you that or if you knew that, but so what we do
Not
is we record it first, and I have it recording on both sides. So if there is a little issue with your stuff, don't worry about it. It looks like LinkedIn's having trouble right now. No big deal. They'll figure it out. Uh, but we do this and then we put it to a podcast afterwards, so that way it's
perfect.
fresh. Yeah, everybody can watch it, do whatever. But enough about us. So we met through, I think we were talking beforehand, Pod Match, and then I asked you to come over, please, on the internet, on the Helping the Brave podcast. I do too many podcasts, so I roll together, and radio show, because I wanted you to talk about, because our show's about once you take the uniform off and how you
Yes.
go from there, right? And we lose our purpose, we lose a lot of stuff, and it affects us for many, many years. Or some people don't have a problem, but a lot of us do. And my big push this year is to help every veteran I can through my Rotary. And that's what my goal is this year. But let's talk about you. What service were you in and why did you choose it?
Great question. So I was U.S. Army for 10 years. So I did 5 years active and 5 years in the Army National Guard in the state of Florida. I chose the U.S. Army because my father was 25 years U.S. Army. So
Wow.
as a child, I lived in Germany because we were stationed in Germany. So my mother's German, my father's African American, and he was a chief warrant officer. And so lived in Germany, and then we moved to Pensacola, Florida once he retired. So Pensacola is known for the Navy base. That's where the Blue Angels are. So that's my home city, home state. Love Florida. But I definitely just wanted to follow my dad's footpath in regards to joining the military. And also as a child, I was the very shy kid. I was a skinny kid. I was getting bullied at home, in school, had a lot of fear, and was just that very closed off person. I had a major stuttering issue, and I knew that sports was going to help, fitness was going to help, and then most importantly, I knew I had to face my other fears in the military. So I always forecasted that I would do X amount of time to enhance my skills and then go on a different path. So as a teen, I just knew that I was going to utilize the time, elevate everything, and then use that as a stepping stone, make connections, travel, and so forth. But that was the path that I took. It was all stemming from getting rid of my fears and also waking up, seeing both of my parents awake early, 4 and 5 a.m. workouts. My mother was a kindergarten teacher for 40 plus years for Montessori school. I didn't personally go to private school, but she was a teacher there, and she'd be up early doing Billy Blank's Tybo DVDs and cassette tapes. My dad would be running and at the gym or in formation, and I would wake up early to do my weight training and all that. So that was what I saw. And as you know, kids, we do what we see, not what we're told. So that's all I saw. So that was normal.
I was going to say, damn, you could be my kid, because I did P90X and all that stuff and everything else. Because that was, it was whatever you could do at the time that you could get the time, and you're right. Kids learn from their parents, good or bad, and watching
Exactly.
what they do, not what they say, but what they do. All right. So 10 years so the 5 years you were active duty, what was your MOS?
25 Quebec. So
Which
satellite
is?
Communications and radio. So basically commos. So we could be anywhere in a training environment, and we could set up the satellite, give everybody internet and radio. And the rest of the time, we'd make sure that everybody was connected. Basically, the guys behind the scenes that basically controlled and ran the mission. But it was very interesting. And at heart, I just always loved tech. And so during the downtime, because it's 20% work and 80% you're just waiting on problems to solve. So the other 80% of the time, I was just studying psychology, fitness, etc. in school. So I was utilizing those things to my advantage.
Wow. Now, you're in 5 years, and I almost threw out there, well, then why do you have such bad internet?
Yeah. So great question. I'm currently in the country of Panama, so the internet's a little sketchy here. That's why I'm in my
that's
lounge
okay.
room.
Yeah.
Hence the
But and when you said you're from Florida, I was like, oh, no problem with humidity then. Yeah. Going to Panama.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No,
See, I'm
not
from
at all.
California. I can't stand humidity at all.
Yeah. You have the dry air. When I go out there the first 48 hours, my nose has to adjust just breathing all that dryer. And I'm like, all right, let me adjust
Yeah. Well, and you don't want to cut
real
yourself
quick.
need. All right. So you're in any unique things happened to you while you were in your service, your 5 years you were in. What years were you in?
Yes. So one of my favorite years in, so I was in from 2008 to 2018. And so 2008 is actually when I graduated college. I did graduated high school. So I'm 33 years old. And so I went in 25 Quebec. And then also in the military, as you know, we wear multiple hats. So in the Army, I was also the master fitness trainer. So I would make sure that the soldiers were mission ready physically and mentally to pass a PT test, be deployment ready, or other individuals that came back from injuries, divorces, deployments, were not in a good physical or mental state and had to lose weight or just come back from an injury. I would help elevate those male and female soldiers to be mission ready. So satellite tech nerd, and on the other side was the fitness, but also I fell in love with the mentality side of it because I knew that a lot of them were married or had kids, and just seeing the positive ripple effect in the military and just in their personal life. So in those years, I fell in love with the psychology aspect of coaching individuals. Back then, I didn't consider myself a life coach because back then that term, there's a lot of scammers and frauders online. So I was like, I don't want to title myself. Nowadays I do, but it's because I just have more skin in the game. So way more testimonials and just the passion behind it. But that passion to push somebody past their limits to see what they're capable of, whether that was physical, mental, or just personal. But that was my true passion. Tech was interesting, but at my core, what gave me that fire was helping others. And it honestly all stemmed from childhood. So both parents were highly successful in their industries and fields, but alcoholism ran on both sides of my family. So they would release a lot. So they were the social butterflies. Everybody knew my parents all over the world. They were popular, but I never told anybody what was happening. But between the hours of 9 p.m. to 1 a.m., they would drink a lot. After the crowd left, they would just release whatever happened that day or 10, 20 years ago. And I was a physical, mental, emotional punching bag, but they could see that I could handle it. I don't wish that on anyone, but that was all part of the journey. So at age 11 and 12, that's what really got me into fitness. I transformed my body because I was a skinny kid getting bullied at home because I was timid, and then by the bullies in school. And then at age 12, I said enough is enough. And that's when I got obsessed with learning about the mind and the body. So honestly, everything that I do now and did in the military was to, one, heal the inner child, make my younger version proud, and then help others do the same. So it's all coming from a place of experience rather than just textbook or theories.
Right. Well, and you need most, and this is what I've found, most people go in the military have had issues there, in their
Oh, yeah.
childhood, and then that's what they deal with. And when they come back with PTSD, it's just exacerbated those problems, and that's why they're having a lot of that issues. And there's a lot we need to work on and heal as all kids, because I tell people there's two things my dad taught me: life's not fair and how to duck. Whether that's funny or not, but that's true. So,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. And I went in the military, and not most of us don't run, smart people don't run at stuff like that. It takes one of us to do that.
Exactly. 100%.
And so when did you fully deal with this? Because you say at 12, you don't really deal with it. It's a symptom. So you figure ways to get around it. But when did you, because you said you dealt with your inner child, was that once you got in the military, or did it take years to deal with that?
So I actually was able and blessed. So to begin with, I feel that every person that has a level of extent, whatever the level of extent their trauma is, whether that's family, friends, their spouses, whoever it was, is that everybody has a gift. And I feel that as a child in my teenage years, my gift was discernment. So being able to meet people where they're at, read them, the individual or a room, and then slowly start to build them up. But first meet them where they're at and not just like go knife hand on everyone, because not everyone's going to learn that way. But with that being said, is at the age of 16, so in high school is when I really did a lot of inner work, because as you know, dealing with alcoholic family or drugs and all that, you have to grow up quick and people start to depend on you. So being an athlete, being in RTC, and then also being in martial arts, I had people that depended on me. So I never would speak about my own problems. I would just show up better. And because I lacked the quote unquote love and affection and all that at home, I had a roof over my We had a roof over our head, always had food, had a beautiful home in Florida, had a screened-in pool from the outside, looked amazing, beautiful family. But behind closed doors, there was a lot of rage and toxicity. So that energy, I flipped it, and I loved going to school because I was not around the toxic people. So I would always try to build others up, opposed to continue the path of destruction, anger, aggression, and all that, where my other friends who went through the exact things or worse, they were in and out of jail, fighting, doing drugs, selling, like just doing the typical things. But I wanted to make sure that I empowered and build others up. But at the age of 16 is when I got really serious, because I was a certified trainer and I started training my teachers, professors, my coworkers. And from there, I truly fell in love with seeing the transformation psychologically more than just like their body. But that's when everything happened, because I could see that people ask me what I did in those years. They're like, yo, you used to be shy, skinny, timid, you stuttered like crazy. Like it was bad. And so they're like, who is this guy? You're a completely different person. You're so laid back. And so I would teach others what I did with that. And at the age of 16, that's honestly when everything shifted, because I made a promise to myself that I would no longer give people the reaction that they expected. And it started with family. So they would expect me to have rage, expect me to run to their room, expect me to cry at night, whatever the reaction was. But from there, I would just have a neutral standpoint. And I brought that into sports, stood up to the bully in school, stood up to the bully for other people, my friends or classmates. And then from there, I realized that my fear level was almost non-existent, because I had faced everything and everyone that was holding me and pushing me down. And from there, it was just fair game to just truly help people in a deeper way.
All right. So did you say you were ROTC?
Yes.
Okay.
In
So
high school and college.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So when you got in, you were officer, I assume? Or did
Yeah, so I did.
Okay.
No, I enlisted. So I did ROTC in high school. And then when I got into the Guard, I continued school and certification training to become a trainer. And then I went basic training. I had to face, because in ROTC in college, you don't go to basic, but I knew that I needed that. So I actually enlisted, because then the last half I went to National Guard. So I was enlisted.
Okay. Even when you went to the National Guard?
Yes, even in the National Guard.
Because I was enlisted. I'm just trying to understand your story, man.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, 100%. Okay. I was enlisted.
Okay. Now, after 5 years of being in, and then you had the 5 years National Guard, what did you do in between that time when you got out? When you transitioned, did you already know what you're going to do, or did you like try to find your purpose, or you already had your purpose? Because it sounds like you kind of really knew what you're going to do since you were 16.
Yes. So I truly had my purpose, because it all started just as fitness and performance. But the older I got in college, what I tended to see, a common pattern was, I would see clients, males and females, that work with me months or years previously, that started to backtrack. They lost their progress. And my younger version was like, he or she's soft and went backwards. But my mature version said, you know what? I did not give him or her the mental tools that they needed to break those patterns. And that's what inspired me to honestly dive deep into life coaching. So then I got certified in life coaching. And nowadays, since then, little to no clients go backwards. If they make the decision to eat differently, that's on them, but they don't go back to a mental vice, that the decision to drink or eat or whatever is not stemming from anxiety, depression, or limiting beliefs. It's just more so, hey, I just kind of want to do that thing. But it's interesting to see. So that is what inspired me to get into life coaching, was to no longer feel like I didn't give someone 100% of the tools that they needed.
Gotcha. And what are you doing now?
So now I do fitness and life coaching, strictly focusing on helping people break old patterns so they can thrive and not just survive, and not just be that one trick pony that's good in this, and they kind of neglect everything and push it into the closet or into the rug, under the rug, and they wait. Today's November 8th, January 1st, I'm going to work on this thing. So we break that typical loop.
So I think you said you had an app.
Yes.
What's your app?
So my app is Fit with Derek. So the fitness app is only accessible to clients, but essentially on the app, they have their calendar. So they have the calendar of their workouts, whatever their programming is, depending on their goals. And then they also have their nutrition. So recipes, examples, meal plans, etc. And then there's tutorial videos of myself 30 to 45 seconds showing the individual how to do the exercise, and they follow the reps and set. So everything is tracked analytically. So the analytical mind, the tech nerd, has all the tech on there for tracking analytics and charts. And everything regarding personal and mental health is all via Zoom, or if it's in person, if we live in the same area. So fitness is in the app, and life coaching is all via video or in person.
And how long have you been doing that with the app? And
so with the app, I've been doing it for 7 years now. And with life coaching now, 5 years.
Well, I was just the app. So it just tells me that you're connected. And what's your do your clients stay with you forever? Or is it like, okay, this is going to be from here to here and then they're done?
So it's 50-50. So some clients, they stay with me for years because we hit their goals, whether it's personal or professional. But from there, I showed them an option of, hey, if he or she loves the accountability, we can work on other things. And usually what happens is they create new goals because they surprise themselves. They make fast results. So I do 2 programs. I start with 12 weeks or 16 weeks. So 3 or 4 months. That's what I start with. And then once we get to the end of that duration, my intent is to give them the skills that they need so they have the knowledge to maintain the results so they never need another trainer, coach, or whatever again. But a lot of people love the accountability and the camaraderie. And especially if they didn't play sports or military, they just love that energy. And so then we work together for years. But some clients, after the 12 or 16 weeks, they say, hey, thank you. I know how to keep this train going and not go backwards, whether that's physical, mental, emotional, professional. But it's 50-50. Some stay with me for years, and some, they basically just soar. They spread their wings and go from there.
And is it just yourself, or is there more people that are doing this with you?
Great question. So it's myself. So I do one-on-one coaching, and then I do group coaching. The only difference is the group coaching is group calls once a week where we do Q&A based on the topics at hand. And then one-on-one is just one or multiple times a week on Zoom. And that's where we dive deep into that thing. So an example, I have a client, she had emotional anxiety for social settings. Crushes it in sales, does everything else well, but can't walk into a store by herself without being on the phone. So like things like that we would tackle, or the guy that crushes it in sales, but had 3 divorces and has a drinking and drug issue. So we break those vices and addictions. And with some people, it's just more so they're too comfortable. They have the family, they have the house, they have the money, and they're just like, I'm depressed. Like I have all those things, but what next? I hit my goals. Like I don't know where to go from here. So I work with those individuals.
Well, a lot of those probably too are, have other issues, and they use their drive to get everything. And then they realize that's not what's making me happy. I still got this other problem I got to deal with.
100%.
Because my wife asked me to go a life coaching course with her, and I did that years ago. And I used it during 2008, the short sell, when everybody lost homes. I helped them get through all that, dealing with because everybody was crying and everything. They're losing their homes and all that. I helped them work through it to see how it's going to be better on the other side. And so it does help. No matter how you use it, it does help.
Exactly.
What do you see is people's biggest problems when it comes to exercise?
What I see with exercise is it's information overload. They open up their apps and everybody's extreme. One guy says only eat liver, F vegetables. The other guy says go vegan. This liver lady says don't eat both of those because that's not good for your health and your testosterone is going to drop. So a huge issue is information overload. And I have nothing against influencers, whatever somebody wants to title themselves, but when it comes to the extreme standpoint, for most people, it's just not going to work because they have to make a whole complete life change. Those things do work for those individuals, but if they're going cold turkey on 10 different things, there's a small chance that that individual is going to succeed long term. But is one, information overload, and number 2 is lack of control of their attention. And it goes back to the devices. Everybody has a loop. We grab our phone when we're bored or have anxiety. Somebody's loop might be Gmail, Instagram, TikTok, CNN. Another person's loop might just be adding random crap on their Amazon cart. And we do it when we're bored, when we're stressed, when we're in an elevator, when we just crushed a sales call. Now we're killing time. Now we're doing our loop again. Like everybody has the loop that they do digitally on their phone. So I feel it's information overload, 1. And number 2, people do not have control of their attention because everything and everyone wants their attention. The apps, men, women, celebrities, agendas, the media, and their minds just all over the place that they can't like focus on one thing. And nowadays human beings in general, their attention span is lower than ever. So the individual crushing it can focus on one thing for an hour straight, and most people can't focus on things for 2 minutes because their mind is on everything else. Like they'll be in the gym texting or scrolling or watching Sports Center video while they're in between bench presses. It's like, what are we doing? Let's get focused. But that's definitely what I see the most is information overload, not knowing what to do. And 2 is no control of their attention.
Okay. And how do you deal with both of those?
Great question. So the first thing that we do is we create a eliminate sheet. So what we do is I have them write out specifically what are some things that they could stop doing or replace with something better that is holding them back. So for many people, we start with just what they eat and what they drink. So whatever they're consuming, and all of us know to an extent, they're like, hey, you know what? Jimmy has too much sugar. Michelle doesn't drink enough water. That's why she's loopy and she's always taking painkillers because she's just not hydrated. Usually it's something very small, but they do it 7 days a week straight. So those are basic examples of what we consume physically, drinking and eating. Second, we look at our digital health. Like, what are we actually consuming the information? Are they watching sad dog videos, adoption videos at 6 a.m. in their bed and they haven't even gotten up and they're like, why am I so sad today? It's 2 p.m. Oh yeah. 6 a.m. I watch this sad Facebook video because when my alarm goes off, I just scroll for 30 minutes. So we really try to hone in on what their time attention is going to and what they're consuming. And then the rest of it, they just go deeper and they choose what is actually keeping them from making the progress that they want. So the first thing I'll do with anybody is we eliminate things before we add to the agenda, before we change the schedule. First, get rid of some things. Because if we add anything on, that's going to add to the stress, anger, anxiety, whatever emotional state they're in. So we first get rid of those things, or in some cases, we simply replace it. So an example could be this individual might drink too much soda. All right, let's go to 2 a week or 2 a day. Then we go from there, some mineral water, some sparkling water. But that individual, that will be huge to them. To somebody else, they're like, I don't need to drink soda. But for that individual, he's probably been drinking soda since he was 12 years old. And now he's in his 30s. So he didn't realize that he's addicted to that. So number one is an eliminate sheet. We write those things out and then we build a plan to get rid of those. And we don't go cold turkey on everything, but we all play the long-term game opposed to just, hey, open your fridge, take a picture. Let's throw away that. Open up your pantry. Let's throw away that. Here's your meal plan. Here's your this. Like, that's not going to work for people unless they're an athlete and they have a competition coming up.
Right. Because I mean, a lot of people don't realize that you can get on these plans and you can work in certain foods that you want. You just have to make sure you work them into your calorie counts that you're trying to do or whatever the numbers are.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because I knew Miss Fitness and she's like, I have Oreos and donuts. I just work them into my numbers.
Oh, yeah. What are your macros?
That's what she's like. It works. You know, you have to have something or you won't continue to do it the way you forever because you're giving away so much. So,
oh, yeah.
And I can see that. Yeah.
What I tell a lot of people is nobody wants to have a 6-pack or a nice butt or a nice chest and nobody around them. Because some people, they get fixated on the body or the money, whatever their thing is that gives them a rush. And if they're totally fixated on it, they can still be in amazing shape and make great money on whatever they're doing. But if they're past the obsessive point, then they might neglect everything else. And then next thing you know, they're the rich guy in the penthouse with nobody around and had 2 or 3 divorces. And it's like, we can't keep pointing the finger. It's us. So that's what we try to avoid.
Gotcha. Yeah, because that's addictive personality where they jump into one thing full bore and then just go crazy on it. And they forget about everything else, like you were talking about, the neglect. And a lot of people are that way. They can only focus on one thing and they can't, focus on a lot of stuff. So it's all about having balance in life. And,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's really hard to do for a lot of people.
Exactly.
Right,
especially if they had a previous addiction. I just want to bounce off that one thing, a pattern that I noticed with some people, and it might not even be a toxic or super unhealthy addiction. It could just be like, let's say this individual had a social media addiction or a soda addiction. If that individual creates a new addiction, they just have to make sure that they're not getting hyper fixated, as you mentioned, where they neglect everything else, or sometimes that starts a pattern. For some people, they go into a religion and then they get lost in whatever they're doing.
Thing.
Like
they
just go extreme.
First thing I thought of is when they first find it and how crazy they are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah. All right. and that's what, so basically what you're saying is just be careful how, take it, look at it, work on it, but don't go to the extreme, and do it over time.
Yes. Everything that we do is, and even what I suggest to people is the way that you're eating, the way your morning routine is, the way your schedule is. Could you sustain this long term? Or is this a 30-day challenge? Or is this a 75-day thing? Could you actually sustain this? And what they notice is eventually their default setting tends to elevate, which essentially just makes them a high performer. So if somebody's around you for 2 days straight, your buddy comes into town, he's like, you're at home, you're at the office, you're doing this, you're doing that, you got podcasts, you're doing this, and you still have time to watch it. Like, how do you do all this? And then you're like,
Organized.
I've been doing this for a year. You're just not even stressed, no anxiety. And your default setting is just way up here and theirs is lower. Not saying we're better or worse than them, but it's always interesting to see who can handle what. And people, they tend to put themselves in a box where they say, I don't have time, I don't have the money, I don't have the energy. But if you look at where their default setting is, it's all based on their morning routine and their schedule. I just keep things simple and straightforward. People tend to, especially nowadays, they make things so grand and try to sound like it's so complicated, but show me your morning routine and show me your calendar, and we can show you exactly where you're at in your life right now. Right. Before somebody like talks about their traumas and everything else, it's usually just stemming from those main two things, their calendar and their morning routine.
Yeah, I could see a lot in the morning routine, and you're right. I mean, because if people, sorry, I forgot my American bully was in here and he was sleeping, and then my wife must have came home because he's crazy and trying to get out the door in my studio. And he's like, just settle down there, buddy. Normally he's just snoring. He's not even moving. So she must be here. That's why he's so crazy. But what you're talking about is routines and what people do and how you can tell with whatever. Because I do a ton of podcasts and people go, I don't know how you do it. It's like I schedule. I schedule my whole day out. I know exactly. And I do certain routines to make sure that's there. I'm doing like 4 jobs that I normally not used to do. And I'm trying to figure them out so then I can pass them on to somebody else. That's the goal, right? You got to make sure that you have that goal. My goal is that. I mean, I'm doing a lot right now, but I won't be doing it forever because I want to make sure how it's done and then move it on. Because, as vets, we want to make sure things are perfect.
Exactly. We want to hone in that wheel so we can teach it to somebody else, make it dummy proof for the next person that might do that task.
Right. And just make sure it's right, fast and done right and never have deal with all the problems, and then it hands it off and then they can go and you can move to the next thing.
100%.
All right, Derek, anything else you want to add before you go?
Yeah. So last thing I always love to leave people with is I challenge everybody to ask themselves, what can I do to become the man or woman that I would be proud of? And how can I give them to the world? What can I do to become the man or woman that I would be proud of? And how could I give them to the world? It doesn't have to be career. It doesn't have to be all out, but I feel like we're all here for a reason, to go through things, to learn, to evolve and grow, and then help teach others. If it's career or personal, doesn't matter. But at our core, everybody just wants to help build up other people. And in reverse, everyone else just wants to be heard and understood. So if we can become better people, give that individual to the world, I feel like we can create a bigger positive ripple effect.
Derek Johnson, thanks for being on here. How do people find you if they want to get connected with you?
Great question. So people can find me on social media at Fit with Derek 2. That's DERICK, the only correct way to spell Derek. Or they can go to fitwithderek.com. They can see the coaching. And I like to show a lot of videos and pictures because social media gets a little sketchy. So they see real people with real results. And in the videos, they talk about their journey, their past addictions, whatever things they overcame. And I just love seeing people's energy of the transformation of their life, personal or physical. But fitwithderek.com or fitwithderek with the number 2 at the end on any social media app pops up. And my whole intent with social media is just to plant seeds, call people out, make them uncomfortable, where they're like, all right, I hit snooze every day. I saw that video. I skipped the gym 5 times. Let me get my ass out of bed. That's my whole intent. Plant that seed so people start wasting their potential.
All right, Derek, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate having you on Helping the Brave. And people reach out to Derek Johnson. Like you said, it was fitwithderek.com.
Yes, that's correct.
That's the best way. Just we'll leave it at that. Then we don't have to add the other stuff. They can find you afterwards, I'm sure, by going to your website. And again, thank you so much for being on the show, especially you being in Panama. and everybody else, make it a great day. Best way you can support us is just going to the YouTube channel, Helping the Brave, and subscribe. So make it a great day. And thank you again, sir.